All right, folks, welcome to Train Sim World, and we are going to be talking about how to set up the Class 166 for Great Western Express, including this particular first group, Class 166, that is available within the Great Western Express download. Let's get right into this, starting right now. All right, folks, so we're getting right back into this with the Class 166. So the Class 166 for GWE. First off, how do you spawn one in? Of course, you had spawn new train by pressing tab. What do you search for? Ironically, compared to the HST, if you happen to see the last video on the HST, Class 166 could actually be found by typing in Class 166, but there is two different types. We're going to start with the typical Class 166. Let's go ahead and go with the empty Class 166. Notice there are two different variations of this, so we're going to start with the 69 meter Class 166. All right, there's our 69 meter Class 166. What in the world is the difference, honestly, between the 69 meter and the non-69 meter? Well, we have this extra track here. All right, what is this 138 meter Class 66 6-car? Wait, what? It's 6 cars, so let's go ahead and spawn that in, but 6 cars is not going to fit here. We're going to spawn that in just a little ways over on the other track where there's just a little bit more room for this kind of train to fit. Oh my god, this thing's so big. Let's go over here. This should do it. There we go. Yes, come on. Ah, there we are. All right, so that Class 66 at 160 something meters is a 6-car engine. Yes, you get this many cars connected together. What's the difference? It really is just 2 Class 66s or 2 Class 166s combined together. The other option we had available was the 3-car loaded and the 6-car loaded. So let's go ahead and click in the 3-car loaded. We're going to spawn that in. Actually, can it even fit anywhere in here? No, it does not fit. We'll just put it right next to this one. This will be fine. All right, folks. So what is the difference between loaded and unloaded, or loaded and empty? Obviously, the empty one gives you a full set of trains that's completely empty, while the loaded version gives you a train full of passengers ready to disembark. We don't actually know where they all go because we've never scanned any of their tickets, because prior to the remastered you could not do any ticket scanning at all for any of these people. So all of these guys are freeloaders on my train. Same thing with the 6-car variant. The 6-car has 6 cars empty and 6 cars completely loaded with passengers, no drivers included, folks. All of them will be on my train pretty much indefinitely forever. Now, folks, you may have noticed there is one extra option, and I'm going to show you that last option right over here. Yes, if you happen to pick up the Great Western Remastered or even the original Great Western, you'll see a Class 166 FGT. They're both by Great Western Express. However, this particular one is a first group designed engine. Yes, this is honestly the only way to get one Class 166, just the engine by itself. Yes, no other cars behind it. It does have a coupler, so you could use it to couple to probably another variation of this. We're going to try that later on in this episode to see if it is possible to create this to look like one of these where you have multiple cars connected together. We will see if that's even possible, folks. How to get inside this train? Obviously, there's no staircase or anything like that. That's totally fine. That's the sucky part, by the way. The engine for this particular train goes right in here. You follow the exhaust pipe. There is the main engine. Yes, you can see it all right in its full glory underneath the train itself. What's to say, in case of fire, full flap, pull handle. We cannot do that in Train Sim World. Thank you very much. One thing I wish Train Sim World had done was allowed us to use the emergency door release. It would have been kind of cool to be able to toggle this to open the door as an emergency release valve. Why they didn't do it, that's totally okay. Instead, what they decided to do was put spare tires in here. That is totally fine. Another thing I wish Train Sim World did with the Class 166 is this is actually your auxiliary battery. It would have been kind of cool to have the ability to turn the dials and lock and unlock the batteries. It would have been neat also to actually do something with the coolant. Yes, there is hot coolant that you fill in right here. Remove filler cap with caution. Just like your typical car, if you pull the filler cap, you get fluid all over the place if it is hot and piping hot. Now, the only thing that actually works outside here, it is impressive. There is an actual engine stop on the outside of the train. Well, let's hold that thought for just a second, folks. Now, I popped inside the engine real quick because I just wanted to show you there's also an engine stop on the inside of the train, but we'll play around with that one in a little while. Let's go ahead and leave this train and play around with the outside one. Where is that outside one? Well, you have to kind of search around the car. You'll find it actually next to the back door. Zoom in a little bit, zoom in a little bit more, and it says emergency stop. Press the button to stop the engine in an emergency. Well, guess what? This is an emergency I am pressing the engine stop button. The question is, did the engine actually stop? Now, you see there's obviously smoke coming out of that engine over there, but a lot of times what happens is you hear the engine a lot more. If you look at this one, you see actually the engine has not stopped. The smoke is still coming out, but did it stop out of this particular section? Well, let's check the other side for a second. Now, there's still smoke coming out of the smokestack polluting our air, so no, it did not shut off the engine. How sad for me. Even though the button works, maybe I have to hit all of the buttons on the outside. All right, we're gonna play around with this idea, folks. Let's see if we can stop the engine multiple times. So actually, this one has an engine start and an engine stop, very different. So this is the other side of the rail car. And by the way, the front is that way. This happens to be the back. Let's find this is further down. Here we are. We have this again. We're currently in the second car. The second car has it as well. Now let's find out about the front car. Did the front car have it too? Now you notice the piping and everything's a little bit different. So that particular area is actually right about here where the exhaust pipe connects into it. There's an exhaust pipe there. This one does not have the exhaust pipe on this side, so let's flip around and see if we can find that sort of setup right about where the exhaust pipe is. Here it is. Yay, we finally found it. So on a front-facing engine, it's actually on the opposite side. It's very weird, actually. Very weird that the engine stop button here did not work. Now I'm going to hold this button down. I'm actually holding the button. Does that change anything when I press the button and hold it down? Still smoke coming out of this smokestack. So we're going to go ahead and change that, and we're going to try to use this engine stop button. This dial here doesn't do anything, and we also have an engine start button. Let's go ahead and press stop. All right, to really test this, I got to go in the engine because it's really the easy way to do it. I can go to camera 3. I can zoom in a little bit. Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, smoke coming out of this one, which this particular one is connected to the back engine there, and this one here is connected to the front. So we know the button is still on this side, so let's go ahead and push the button right here. We're going to press it real quick. Engine stop, press once, and did that shut off this engine? It did. It did shut off the engine, so those buttons do actually work. The question is, will the engine start back up because I did that? And actually, we're going to have some fun with this as we go along, folks. Press the engine stop one more time. We have officially shut down this Class 166. Something Dovetail Games did not tell you is how to shut off your engine, folks. You think there's a dial in the front, but it doesn't always translate to every car. So this one in particular required me to do it 3 different times, but that's because I did it on the outside. We're back in the cab real quick. The engine start button, and by the way, in case you're looking for the engine stop button, it is right here too, but the engine start button is here. Let's go ahead and press this once and see what happens, folks. We're going to go on the outside as we press it. Press that once. What actually started up? The entire thing instantly started up before anything happened. Unless I'm in the wrong train, it instantly started. So let's go ahead and press the engine stop button. Did that shut the entire thing down? Yes, it shut the entire thing down all at once. From inside the cab, you can turn on the engine real easily for all the cars or turn them off for all the cars. Well, what about that outside switch? So engine start, we're going to press this once, and that officially started this one engine. So folks, if you happen to think your way of starting engine from the outside of a Class 166 is the way to go, keep in mind you've only started one engine. You will not get the full power of all 3 engines combined. In fact, the only way to get all 3 engines combined is you have to start each individual engine up individually. The advantage of this is actually if you wanted to tow one of these engines, that would be the way to go to make the tow happen. All right, well, let's close that door for a second. There we go. Now we have some little peace and quiet here, folks. We have a button down here, and I don't even know what this button does. I've not been able to figure this out. If anybody knows what this button down here on the bottom is actually for, I would love to know. Or is this button happen to be very similar to my favorite light, the reading light? Yes, if I press the reading light, there is no reading light in my cab. Nothing ever turned on in here if I turn on the reading light. I would have thought the reading light might have turned on the lights out here, but that's actually not true. It will not turn on the lights. Even this guy knows that. Now let's talk about the cab lights, and actually the sunlight's too bright. Let's turn the blind just real quick so that way we don't have to deal with the light outside. We have the singular. Where is our phone for the singular? The contact to singular is actually right in front of us. This phone, I don't know why we have a second phone, but maybe this is the phone to contact the guard. Contact somebody else, let them know. Tell me what that phone for. I would love to know. Now, let's turn on the cab light itself. This is your cab light button. This will turn on the lights right here inside the cab. Yes, we're going to turn that back off for just a second. We have a second cab light, and that is the one right up here. Train lighting on. If I turn on train lighting, you'll notice that will turn on the cab light for the rest of the train, not the actual cab. It will actually turn on the locomotive light for the cars themselves, and everyone in here will get lit up all the way down to the other end of the train. Yes, I can walk all the way through and open the door and pop in and drive the train in the opposite direction. I will say this now probably one time. Everything I do on this side is going to be identical to everything I do on that side, with maybe like one exception that I can think of. Let's find out if that's true. Right now it says our train is not in service, so we're going to go ahead and press the OK button. There's two of this. There's the minus button and there's an OK button. Let's just go ahead and pick London Paddington. Why? Because technically I'm out here in Reading Upper Triangle Depot Track 3, so of course I'm going to go to Paddington, so that's where we're going to go. We're going to leave that set, and I believe I can press the OK button to lock that in, and that will lock it in officially. There it goes. London Paddington is now in service. You can see that's lit up on the side of the train, or at least the front of the train. Let's go see if that lit up the other side. Yes, it did. It lights up both sides of our train, folks. Pressing Control Plus will get you back into the front cab if you only have the single engine. Keep that in mind. That's very important to have a one engine work. Guys, I gotta do some work. I'm shutting you guys out of here. Real quick, you do have a seat for the second man. This just happened to be like this, so it's not in your way, so you can always at least sit here. The second man honestly had no job. There's no button for the second man to push except for the train door release. For the guard buzzer, yes, you can press that a couple times. For the train door release again, and for the train door close. Why might there be two train door releases? Well, let's find this out. We're going to press the bottom one first and see which one actually opens. Going on the outside, which of our doors is the one that opens? I pressed it. One of the doors is supposed to open. Why did it not open? Well, apparently the second man does not have a job today, folks. Why is the door not releasing? Check single aspect. What does that even mean, folks? Well, maybe I need to be a driver to do this. So let's go ahead and try that again. We have a couple door releases right here. Train door release. Let's go ahead and press that right there. We also have another one. So why doesn't the train doors open? Sorry, I'm going to bug you guys one more time. I can't open the door individually. Now, these things actually do work. If I hit the open button, it should open the door. I said it should open the door. There it goes. It lit up for me, but the door did not open. Ah, there it goes. Finally, the door finally opened. That much power to draw into that open door. Same thing on this side. Press that. Press that. Press and hold. Come on, door, open. Oh, okay, there it goes. It's finally opening. Well, there we go. This is very slow and awkwardly inconvenient for me to open doors this way. We're not going to do this. We're going to actually shut the door. We're going to actually see if that even closes it, because I doubt it's going to close properly. Oh, there it goes. Yay, it's finally closing. That took a long time. Anyways, let's try this real quick. Unlock right door. The train doors still do not open. What's causing my train doors to not open? I can open them manually, but I can't open it automatically. We're going to come back to that in a minute. In fact, it does say my train doors are open according to the icon here, but none of my train doors are properly open. In fact, every one of my train doors are completely closed, so there's something going on in the system. Let's just lock the left door. What is it? Lock left? We're going to lock the... Well, no, it was lock right. We're going to lock the right door. That will do. Lock both doors. Just lock all the doors, people. For whatever reason, the train is broken, and it already says my doors are open, and nothing is working properly, so that's okay. Let's get back in the driver's seat. The sun's finally out of my eyes. This is good. We can open up the blind for just a second here. The windscreen demeister will defrost your windows in case it ever gets really frosty. You'll see this a lot, essentially with this big giant ball of frost in the way. This has to snow enough to really get in the way for that, or at least get enough rain to kind of be important for you guys. The fault light brighter and the fault light dimmer. What in the world is this even for? Well, this is actually for these lights right here when they go on default. The only way I can show you is when one of them is actually working, and I won't be able to show you until I can get the door to open. So when that happens, we will talk about that when we get there. The train preheat, you probably don't care, but it heats up the cars behind us, so that way the people are happy. Brake sandy, I can do isolated or I can do normal. We have headlight. We are currently in a yard. The marker lights should be on. They should look very much like this with two bright lights. If we happen to be in daytime mode, or actually put this way, if we're in tail mode, this thing should show up as red light, as it is also showing up on screen right in here. The other alternative to this is day headlamp mode, which again shows up right on the screen. And what does that look like on the outside? It's shifted over that way. And the idea behind this again is providing lights for people to see the train, not so much for the train to see the ground. So when you do night headlamp mode, just look at the difference. Just again, tail mode. There we go. Night headlamp mode, shift it over to the opposite side. With that said, we're going to put this back on marker mode because we're doing yard work for today. We have a bunch of icons up here. Oh no, I don't want to open the door. We have a bunch of icons up here. We're going to zoom in for this. We have emergency brake supply, TPWSIS, blah, 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 blah. We're going to go through each one of these for just a minute. The emergency brake supply is already going to be on normal. You can actually isolate that right up here, but there's no point to turn off the emergency brake supply. That'd be terrible. The TPWSIS system is already isolated. If you want safety system on, you need to turn this on to normal. Definitely the same thing for DSD. So DSD, the pedal for the DSD is going to be down here on the floorboard of your train. That is your DSD pedal. If you press Q, that's going to press that for you, as well as pressing the AWS button. The AWS button in this train is actually right in here where it says reset, right in front of us right there. So the only way the TPWSIS system will turn on is actually related to this stuff right over here. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Vigilance is already on normal. Vigilance, if you turn that on isolated, that's going to turn off the little ding, ding, ding that keeps happening to pay attention. And what that's for is so you press this, like, hello, are you still alive? Are you awake? You got to press it every like 90 seconds or so and tell the people that you're alive. What's also up here, folks, is the passenger communications. Let's just turn that to isolated because we don't need to talk to passenger today. The train fire alarm, of course, we want to leave that on unless we want to, cause the fire back there with someone smoking. And the standing and traction, we probably should leave that on so actually we get some sand happening in our train, folks. We have the gauge dimmer light. We're going to turn that on. We can actually brighten that, or we can dim that, or we can go to quarter, or we can go completely off. So we have quarter, half, and completely bright, folks. By the way, in case you want to know if you have sand available, it does tell you have sand available. Back on the back wall, let's stand up for a second so you can see this a little better. This happens to be all of your public fuses that you have access to as a player. However, only one of these work, and that is the AWS fuse right here. Turning that on. Why? Because when you sit in this train, you're going to have that wonderful thing that you have to press Q for. And in fact, did I turn this back off? I did not. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and turn this back on just in case that's an issue. I always remember Q making a sound when you press the AWS. Maybe it's because I didn't turn on my master key. Let's turn that on, and there we go. We got our brakes. Put this on forward. There is our wonderful, horrible sound. We press Q to get rid of that, and that is how we get that sound to turn on, folks. All right, guys, one of the things I actually forgot about is this wonderful sunflower right here in front of us. So the way the sunflower works, I meant to mention this earlier, but I completely blanked out when I was editing the video. It's like, oh my gosh, that's what I forgot. The way the sunflower works is this is actually irradiated here. So the colors that you see is a painted irradiated color, and it's actually a mechanical switch. So I'm going to show you a video in a little bit of the mechanical switch actually working. But the way it works, of course, is you go back behind me, you have this little toggle over for the AWS fuse. Turn that on, you get the wonderful Q button, and you get this blank screen right here. As soon as you press Q, or as soon as you press the alerter here, that will change it back to the sunflower. The point of this, again, is when you drive forward and go into the yellow lights and you see a yellow light up ahead and you're going full bore, this little icon will pop up and will identify that you got a yellow light ahead. So it's meant visually for the driver to be able to see that that's happening. And when you hit the alerter here, or the reset for the alerter, that essentially resets this, so it acknowledges the switch that said, okay, I've seen the yellow light, I get it, I'm going to slow down, so I start slowing down. Realistically, it won't turn back on unless you're coming up on a red light, or if you have a reason to get another one of these type of singles. Right here, this is a perfect place for it. So you have the single here, it is red. This plate here will tell you whether or not the sunflower will turn on when the light is red or yellow. If it's green, these things are going to let your train roll on through, and you'll just see the black screen that you normally see. Now, of course, when my train is left on off and whatnot, and I turn this on and off, as you can see, it doesn't do anything. So it only does it if I put this on forward, and that is when that happened. Notice this light is on already for the buzzer for the guard. We have some temperature controls. We can turn on the fan to high or low, can put the heat to cool or hot, and we're going to come back to this thing in a few minutes. We'll put that on just for now, and we can isolate that, or we could put that on normal. But for now, we're going to go back to the door control. Let's go ahead and try this again. Train door release. Did that finally open a door on the side? It did! The doors are finally opening. Why didn't it work? It was because we needed the master key on and we needed our train active for the door to properly work. Now, you notice I pushed this top button here. What happens if I push this bottom one? Let's go ahead and see what actually happens with our door, folks. Now, ironically, pushing the bottom one didn't work for me. I don't know why that is. We're going to close the door for a second. Let's close the train doors. It still says my train doors are open. This is insane. Let's try to release the opposite door. Let's see which one opens. Again, I pressed the bottom button this time. Which one of these doors are actually opening? It's the same door. My goodness. So yes, this button ironically connects to the same identical door. You would have thought this would have been opposite sides of the car. Well then, what about this side? Well, let's go ahead and try the bottom button first. We'll press that one. Does that open the opposite door this time? There it goes. The opposite door has finally opened. So that means if I close the door again, is it going to close all the doors, or is it just going to close one of the doors? No, it only closes one door. So keep this in mind, folks. If you happen to use these buttons on the side and you're trying to open the left door, you're going to realize the door is actually opening the right door. And on cue, it opened. Thank you very much. You have to keep in mind when you're opening and closing doors to press both of these buttons separately, especially if you have to load people up on both sides of the platform, so all the door closes. And as you can see, you have an indicator that actually told you whether or not the doors were open or closed. Now, alternatively, you can press tab and you can unlock left and unlock right, and that's probably the easy way to go, where you can open the door and it'll automatically do it, and it'll light up for you just when you need it to show you the doors are open. The other thing that it does is, you remember when I said I couldn't show you this until later, the door interlock button, that is actually where the fault light dimmer, you can kind of sort of see that is brightening and dimming. It's very, very hard to tell, but it actually happens. This stuff all right here, all brightened and dimmed when you press this button. It's just really subtle, and it's really hard to tell, but it does work. Now, obviously, if you want to drive this train's practically ready to drive. You got your horn here, you got your window wipers where you can turn on to maximum and it'll get in your way. There is no buttons up here or anything, even though this is conveniently available. Yes, you don't always have to go up there to change your destination. You can actually change your destination from down here if you happen to know what it is. And I would have thought it would show up on the screen here, but it doesn't do that. That's totally fine. That's weird that it didn't put it back into Paddington's service. How interesting. Why didn't it do it? Let's go to the front of the train and see what happened. It still said not in service. Why does it say not in service now? I remember I put it on Paddington, folks. What changed? All right, we're going to lock this in for London Paddington one more time. We're going to come down to the chair here. We're going to go ahead and put this on next destination, no previous destination, not in service. It doesn't do it. So somehow my train mysteriously changed the service from where it was to what it is now, and I didn't do anything to this. It changed itself. Maybe it did it when I did something else in the cab. Who knows? Someone has to tell me how that happened. Okay, folks, I technically deleted the rest of the train for one purpose. I want to show you something real quick. There's a button down here that says Passenger Emergency Override. What is this for? So right in here, there is an alarm. It says alarm located above doorway. If you zoom in right here, it says alarm, penalty for improper use, pull the handle, speak with the driver. Yes, this is actually what the passenger safety override switch is for, that's on the bottom of the floorboard. In the context of UK train, the passenger override is tied to the passenger communication handle, the passenger comm. That's what this particular thing does. When I isolate that switch up there, it prevents me from communicating as a passenger to the driver in this little box right here. What this does is when the passenger pulls the handle and talks to the driver, they declare there's an alarm, but as soon as the passenger pulls the handle, it actually activates the train's brake. Can I do this in real life with Train Sim World? Absolutely not. It will not let me. There's no function in here, which is really unfortunate. It'd be kind of cool if we could use it. And the idea behind it, the driver has about 3 seconds to make a decision on whether or not to press this button, which is put practically. He's got to go from here to there in 3 seconds. And what he's looking for, is there a safe place to stop the train? Tunnels would be a great place for this, or bridges is another great place for this, where it's just not safe to stop a train and get people off the train if there's a major emergency. Maybe you want the train to keep moving a little bit more, so that way you can stop it in the proper place. That's the idea behind the passenger override switch. The HST does not have this, and neither does the Class 66. Now, if there is an alarm, notice there's actually a light up panel right in front of us that's non-active that we can't use for that very explicit purpose. So when that light up panel happens, you have 3 seconds again to hit this button down here. Notice there's also a safety system isolate button here, so it should tell me if this is off. TPWSIS is now off. There it is. Our light up switch is now active. Very nice. The other thing I've got here is the DRA. So the DRA again is, you see that red single up ahead? I don't want to be going through that red single, failing my mission. If I were to throttle up this train and I were to go full bore, you would think, okay, yeah, you can go, but the DRA is what's keeping me from going. That is the safety system to keep me from going through red light. So again, if I turn this off, the train technically looks like it's ready to go, but it's not going. Why doesn't my train go? It's actually because I got to take the throttle, bump it back down a little bit, and then I can bump it forward and the train will finally start to go. And guaranteed, actually, the DRA will not stop your train if I trigger the DRA as a way to stop the train. You'll see the train pull back. That's because the engine shut off, but the train itself is still rolling and I still have to apply the brakes. I can apply the emergency brake like this and shut my train down instantly if I really had to do that. This train is really good at stopping, or I could throttle all the way through the cycle and go into emergency brake that way and shut the train down there. Up here you have 3 buttons. We're going to zoom in just a little bit. We have the brake demand here at the very top, temporary isolation fault, train stop override. I believe the temporary isolation fault should work for one of these. No, it did not. It does not do it. Why doesn't it do it? Let's try the AWS one more time. Nothing. It doesn't work this time. What the heck? That's for the AWS, folks. So that's supposed to be when these things are turned off, that light's supposed to be on, yet it's not doing it. Whatever, game. I don't know what's wrong with you. The temporary isolation fault is supposed to be on when the AWS switch here is isolated, like how it is. However, it's not actually operational. Maybe it is operational when the train's actually running. So weird that it's not doing it when it really should be doing it. Anyhow, if you look at the HST, you'll find out that this isolation will work. If you look at the Class 66, it will work. If you look at other trains, this sort of thing will work. The Class 66, it doesn't seem to turn on this here. The brake demand light, however, if this light is yellow and you don't properly press the AWS button in time, in other words, you have about, oh gosh, what is it? 2.5 to 3 seconds to cancel the AWS in the allotted time. Again, very much depending on traction system, part of the train protection warning system, and failing to cancel that within the allotted time will automatically set off the emergency brake. And when the emergency brake happens, the brake demand light will first essentially start blinking, and then as soon as you acknowledge it again with either Q or pressing the AWS again, then you will finally get the brake demand light to go steady, and then you have to wait about a good minute for that brake demand light to completely turn itself off. That's the only way it's going to turn off, folks. The train stop override, on the other hand, this would be actually a time to do that. What I would do is contact the signaler like this. There's no signaler now, and then I would press the train stop override, and now it says there's a temporary isolation fault. What the heck, man? That's not how that's supposed to work. This light's supposed to be the one that lights up, not that one. Dovetail Games, you have this wired wrong, folks. You have this wired wrong. Well, anyway, the train stop override light is supposed to be the one that turned on that said I can go through the single and I can pass through the single at danger. It's not meant to be a long-term fix. It's only meant to be when the dispatch says I can do so. As you can see there, when I hit the button, the light does turn off. It takes, oh gosh, maybe like 20 seconds. If I don't get through this in 20 seconds, then that light up there turns itself off. Once it turns itself off, I'm basically screwed and I pass the single at danger. So I have 20 seconds to get through that light, or else I can't get through the red light otherwise. And again, you have to work with dispatch to do it. If I'm going through 2 of these, I have to once again press this twice to do it. So I would do it for the first one, and then as soon as I go through the first one, I'm ready to go to the second one. I press it again, even if they're less than 20 seconds apart, and I would have made it through both lights within 20 seconds. Very important, folks. Now you'll notice something here on the outside of this train. This is a 6-car train, okay? So you may notice there's couplers here. Yes, it's got a funky looking coupler. It's very odd looking, very odd style coupler, and it doesn't have any like unlock button or feature in here. So how does this coupler actually work? In our cab, we have a nifty button that says couple and uncouple. Yes, we're going to go ahead and press the uncouple button, and we're going to go see if that properly uncoupled the back car. Now, personally, I don't think that did it. I don't think that properly uncoupled this one, but we're going to assume that did that, and we're going to go ahead and drive forward for a second. I think the emergency brake is still on. No, it is not. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to throttle 3. What is holding my train now this time? There it goes. We're going to try to throttle up too, and we're going to go into the back car. Did it do it? I don't know. I couldn't see what happened, folks. No, we're still dragging that train. We're still dragging that train. Let's stop the train. Emergency override so we don't go through that. Obviously, this one didn't do it. So let's go ahead and what is it? Turn this one. How do I turn this off? We're going to put this on full service for the time being. Turn the reverser off. Master key lock. So this side of the train is officially off. We're not going to worry about AWS. Normally I would turn that all off. All right. We are on the other cab. Right here in front of us is that train. We're going to go ahead and turn this one on. Master key on. We're going to put this in reverse because we're going to back up our train here. We're going to leave this in full service. Actually, we're going to turn it off. That's what I should have done in the other cab. Okay. Brakes are off in the other cab. Now we're going to go ahead and try this uncouple button. We're going to press the uncouple button and we're going to try to back away. We only pressed the button, so that's all we did, folks. We're still dragging the train with us, so that's not cutting it, folks. We're going to emergency brake this again so we don't just run through things. So how do we actually uncouple this train? This train's not uncoupling. All right, we have a little bit more space to back this train up, so let's go ahead and master key on, reverser backwards. Good, we're going to go backwards here. We're going to put the brakes all the way to off. We're not going to go to throttle 1 yet, but actually we're just going to go to throttle 1 because that's throttle 1 there. We're going to go ahead and press the uncouple button as we're throttling, and we're going to see if there is a difference there. We're going to throttle up. Ah, there it goes. Our train is officially released, folks. Our train is officially released. We've separated our two class 166s. So let's try that again. We're going to actually couple this train. All we're going to do is we're just going to go right into that train right in front. Now notice that we bumped it up and we've already coupled it. It's already locked in and now we can't really uncouple, even though it has a button that says couple, which is very odd that it did that. So let's stop our train for just for a second here. Brake hold off, brake hold on. What do I want to do? I'm going to come back to that brake hold in just a second. Reverser, no. Throttle brake, here we go. This train is a little different because it required a throttle brake rather than your traditional train brake. There is in the setting a couple button. We're going to go look for that. Now in the settings under control guide, you'll notice there's a series of buttons that says couple button, control C, couple lock back, control up C, and then control C, couple lock front. And there's no real like couple unlock. So we're going to go ahead and play around with that. But that's our couple button. So let's see, control C. Notice that it says couple press. Now, what about uncouple? Let's try Alt C. No. Shift C. No. Control Shift C. There it goes. You can see that uncouple working right there. So when you press Control Shift C, you can definitely see whether or not your train is actually coupled or not. Now, if I'm correct, there is no possible way to uncouple this coupler right here. This coupler is officially locked in and it's just basically permanent. And I don't see of any other way I can technically unlock that coupler. And as far as I know, when I sit into this engine and I sit here and I go into camera 8, this pin here should only work with Control C plus. Now you can't see anything because it's saying it's uncoupled because that's what I'm doing, but I doubt it's going to uncouple any of the other cars. We can attempt to try that, quite frankly. We're going to go ahead and press Control Shift C, and if anything, the train is still attached together and it will not properly uncouple any of the other cars. No matter how many times I try to do this, it's not letting me uncouple the other cars. Just not going to happen, folks. For the most part, the Class 166 is 3 cars combined together. There is no real way to stop this from uncoupling itself. One more last thing about the coupler is it's an odd looking coupler. So can this actually hook up to another train type? Let's start with the Class 66, of course, the famous Class 66 DBS. I would think the Class 66 could couple to this. If you want to know more about the Class 66 and how to work the Buckeye coupler or anything, even how to drive the Class 66, please definitely check out my other videos that talks about how to start up a Class 66 and how to run it and how to use it. For the purposes of today, all we need to know is can we drive this train? So let's see what will happen, folks, if we hook up a Class 66 to this. Can it actually do it? Will it do it or won't it? Well, that was interesting. Let's try that again, folks. One more time. Let's hope we don't break the engine. What we're going to try to do with this Class 66 is we're going to try to stop this so that way we are close enough to potentially use the Buckeye. The reason the train is bouncing back is actually because of these buffers. If you'll notice, you'll hit the buffers and then it bounces back. We're going to put automatic brake and hold, and oh god, I'm still too far. So you got to ask, can a Class 66 tow a train like this? I have to say the answer is no. I want to say there's probably a special train that could officially tow a Class 166. It's probably going to be another Class 166 towing a previous Class 166, or just not using anything at all and just using a horse and wagon or something like that. Let's get rid of this train. All right, folks, if you want to know how to also do this with a GWR HST and create a single engine of a GWR, and you want to know how to uncouple that, definitely hit up one of my other videos on how to do that as well, because I got a video for you in this channel. Now, the HST has a weirder couple. Now, it may possibly work. However, this is still a Buckeye coupler. It may not actually work. So let's go ahead and try this. We're going to see if an HST can couple to a Class 166. I'm actually super curious about it, folks. What will happen to the HST if you couple? I'm super curious. Nothing! Okay, so the HST also cannot couple to a Class 166. So that means the only 166 it can couple is a 166 by itself. Looking at this Class 166, it actually has the same sort of coupler setup that has, so this 166 should do it. The difference with this 166, it is very different, where it has this weird door setup where I could actually go inside the door and just fall out of this door without a back end to it. So we're going to play around with this for a second, folks. Again, this is set up the same way. It's just got different upholstery and everything. It's just a first group version of the same engine. We're going to drive this forward, and we're going to try to see if we can couple up to this train. Oh my gosh, look at this. The dial, how useful. This is totally a Train Sim World 2020 dial, man. Let's see, can it couple? I think it can, and it should show us right about now. Yes, that is right. This first group can totally tow any of your Class 166s. That leaves me thinking, folks, we're going to spawn this in. And we're going to spawn in one facing this way. We're going to spawn in another one facing this way. So technically these should couple together. You got that right? And then we're going to spawn in one more. I'm super curious. Can it couple facing this way? All right, first things first. We want to see, can we couple this 166 to that 166? The first group facing backwards onto this first group. This will be just so funky, honestly. I love doing stuff like this. It's actually kind of fun. So yes, it did couple. Can I continue going forward? Probably not, because the brakes are still on. Oh, I can go forward. Look at that. So yes, I could drive a first group all facing the wrong way, making it look more like a bus than a train car. So yes, you can definitely set your first group crane just like this, going head to head, or you could do this from head to tail. What a great idea that was. And that, folks, is how you build a first group style Class 166 train. Yes, by backing into train by train by train. And each train here will eventually connect to everything else. And you could build a 1-car train, a 2-car train, a 3-car train, a 4-car train, a 20-car train, whatever your heart desire based on the first group style of train. All right, folks, so if you liked watching this one, definitely like, subscribe, leave me comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thank you again for taking the time to watch this and learn with me about how to drive these types of trains. And of course, guys, if you like watching this and you enjoyed learning about driving the Class 166, I've already got an HST video ready to go for you guys right here. And you guys can start watching the Class 43 HST starting now.